For those of you who don't know me, my name is David, and I have the pleasure of being the campus pastor over at Mosaic South Pasadena with a wonderful team of volunteer leaders and staff leaders, and we have a lot of fun. And one of the things that we got a chance to do during the pandemic was we actually renovated an old historical theater, and it almost killed me. But it was an amazing experience. We transformed this, we used to call it like a vampire castle into a beautiful historic theater that's just beautiful to look at. We had Disney artists that hand-painted the top and just the whole surroundings, and you've got to check it out sometime. If you're in Pasadena, you should come join us. Shameless plug for Mosaic over there in South Pasadena. We really enjoy it. But one of the things that we did when we were designing it, we were looking together with it, is Pastor Irwin and Aaron came by and they were talking to us about the plans. And one thing that I'll never forget, he said to me, is like, hey, we just have one condition, one requirement that you have to do, David. We want to make sure that you give yourself an office. And I was like, well, I don't really need an office. You know, I'm good, or we can have an office for all of us. Because no, we knew that you wouldn't do that for yourself. We want to make sure that you, in the plans, give yourself an office, and a big office, like, plenty of space, windows, everything, a shower, whatever you need. I was like, I don't need a shower, my office, So I went ahead and drew out the plans, and I did it. I mean, I gave myself an office. Maybe I went a little bit overboard, because I gave myself like the biggest office of the entire Mosaic staff, and it's a beautiful office. You want to take a look at it? I have a picture for you. This is, you can clap for that. It's a beautiful, I can enjoy but you can see, I'm so embarrassed about this office. Even my eye, look at my eyes. Like I'm embarrassed even to show you like this office, because it's better than Pastor Irwin's office. He doesn't even have an office. I mean, I feel like lavished on, and I have to be in that space. And Pastor Carlos went and spoke over there a few weeks ago and just said, hey, bro, your office is so cool. And I was like, I know, I'm sorry. I feel so bad about just being in this beautiful space. I feel like a king just looking down at the valley below on this tower. And I don't know why it's so hard for me to give myself permission for stuff like that, but sometimes you need people in your life who give you permission for the things that will help you in life. And I don't know if you struggle with that, but I hope that you surround yourself with permission givers. I hope that for you. It's important to have permission givers. In fact, the advantage of, and when you look at giving yourself permission, everyone says the same thing. You need to be able to trust yourself to give yourself permission. Don't care about what anybody says. Don't let anybody tell you. You just have to trust yourself to give yourself permission. But that kind of breaks down because we give ourselves permission because other people have given us permission. It's other people that saw something in you and said, hey, you should do that. And you've done that enough times, you start giving yourself permission to do that. You learn from everyone. And so some of the best things that have happened in my life is people saw what I couldn't see in me and said, you should do that. It did it enough times that I learned to give myself permission. How about you? 3 of you. Yeah, we give ourselves permission as we listen to other people. And the world needs permission givers, doesn't it? It's so toxic sometimes. It can be so negative and so down on you, and you have to do everything right. We need more permission givers, and if you can't give yourself permission, sometimes you're limited in the way you give other people permission. Why do we struggle with this? My wife and I are very driven, and she's an award-winning author and a teacher, and she's a mom and a wife, and just incredible person, very, very driven. And I'm driven too. We do a lot of things, and sometimes we're so busy, and we just have to say it out loud, like, honey, is it okay if I just relax today? Why am I asking her, And she does the same thing to me. She's like, I just want to relax. I just want to be able to take a break, and is that okay? And I don't know why we're asking each other, but we go through this long list of, yes, you've done, you wrote a book, you fed the kids, you did all this whole list of things, and it's only been it's 8 a.m., You've done all this already, you deserve a break. We just have to say that, and then both of us are like, okay, I just needed I needed someone to tell me, to give me permission to rest. You ever have that? Is it just me? We sometimes have trouble living with permission, and that's what I want to talk to you about today, because I think it takes a few things to really understand what it is to have a life where you're living with permission. I think it takes understanding of who you are, who your authority is in life, and who you want to become. And this is the story I want to talk to you about today. It was a story of a father and two sons, and he just gave permission to both of them, and they didn't know what to do with it. And that's why I want to dive into the story, see if there's insight of how we can actually live with permission. It's in Luke chapter 15, starting with verse 11. It says, Jesus continued. There was a man who had two sons. The younger one said to his father, "Father, give me my share of the estate." So he divided his property between them. Not long after that, the younger son got together all he had. He set off for a distant country and there squandered his wealth in wild living. After he had spent everything, there was a severe famine in that whole country, and he began to be in need. So he went and hired himself out to a citizen of that country who sent him to his fields to feed pigs. He longed to fill his stomach with the pods that the pigs were eating, but no one gave him anything. When he came to his senses, he said, "How many of my father's hired servants have food to spare, and here I am starving to death? I will set out and go back to my father and say to him, 'Father, I have sinned against heaven and against you. I am no longer worthy to be called your son. Make me like one of your hired servants.' So he got up and went to his father." Living with permission starts with one question. Do you know you? You're like, "Well, of course I know me. I got myself here. I know me. Yeah, I brushed my teeth. I know me." But the son actually thought he did. He thought he knew himself, but he knew that he didn't fit into the plans of his father. So he goes to his father and he's like, "Dad, I want half of I want the inheritance now," which was unheard of because you didn't ask a Jewish father for his inheritance. That happens after you die. What he was essentially saying was, "Dad, you're taking too long to die. So I want your stuff. I want it now. Can you give that to me?" And it was insulting. It was a betrayal to his dad. But he asked him, "I just want, look, you're healthy. What am I going to do? I want to start now." And he's like, takes that in, and he decides immediately to give his son permission to take it all the resources. And his son is so happy with this because he knows that he doesn't fit into being there on the farm. He doesn't want to run the farm business. He doesn't want to be like his older brother, He wants his own life. He doesn't fit with all the expectation the father has for him. It is a perfect Disney opening. You're restricting his destiny. Can you see it? "Father, I have a greater life to live." You can read the script, you can understand what he wants. He wants to be free, and it would make a really, really beautiful story. And so he asks his father for his inheritance, and he goes, and he squanders it. And he does this because he knows himself. And see, God gives us permission. In Psalms chapter 81, verse 12, it says, "So I gave them over to their stubborn hearts to follow their own devices." In fact, perhaps one of the most painful things that God can ever have you and I go through is to have everything we want. This is the story of what we see in the younger son. Every pleasure, every freedom, he starts out really wealthy. He has plenty of money, plenty of parties, plenty of friends. They're all around when the money is flowing. And then it says that he ran out of everything. He turned broke. You been there? A few of you. He was broke, and it says he was broke, and then a famine hit. It wasn't the famine caused him being broke. No, his choices caused that, and then a famine hit, and he was desperately hungry. And he started trying to figure out how he was going to live. He leads himself into complete poverty. He tries with his pleasure and freedom. See, we think freedom is all about satisfying perhaps our own appetites. That's the beginning, but that can be really disguised bondage for us. Kids can't live on ice cream. Teens can't live on social media, and adults can't live on achievement alone, even if it's something that we really, really want. It takes more. You see, if we go after everything we want, we may lose sight of everything we truly need. And this is what he finds out. See, if you've done that, if you've gone after everything you want, perhaps you miss healthy relationships that you need in your life. You go after everything you want and you miss the peace in your life. You go after everything that you want and you miss the power of generosity in your life, of sacrifice, of all the stuff that really is the good stuff of humanity. You miss that because you're going after everything you want. He trusts himself completely. It says in verse 15, so he went and hired himself out to a citizen of that country who sent him to his fields to feed pigs. He longed to fill his stomach with the pods that the pigs were eating, but no one gave him anything. There's two changes that happen inside of the younger son with full permission: his appetite and his self-image. His appetite changes because our appetites change before we do. And so, something he had never considered before. He never dreamt about pig slop before. He never wanted that for dinner. He never asked, Mom, could you make pig slop today? I am like, it's my favorite. Maggot-infested pig slop. I just want, if I could just taste that. But, crisis comes, and now he's hungry. There's a Persian riddle, a fable that says, what can turn a ferocious lion into a feeble fox? And the answer is need. Need. And in a famine, all there is need. And so he goes and he's so hungry. It says that he longed for the pig slop, that he wished he could just taste just a little bit of it. And in this way, he was living less. He forfeited what he really knew before. He traded, perhaps for him, there were things that he actually knew that he wanted, and he couldn't get those things. There's something that you long for that you know is unhealthy for your soul. You don't know you if you've resorted to living a lesser life. Perhaps replacing peace with staying buzzed. Perhaps for you, it's replacing love for sexual pleasure, or perhaps even replacing building a strong spirit for a synthetic spiritual experience. I don't know what it is for you, but there's lower living and there's higher living. There's things that you know that would bring you life, and then there's all the things that you've replaced and you've lost yourself. This is where he was, and he didn't know who he was. See, only crisis can reveal who you truly are. Who we are in crisis is who we truly are. Do you know that? You can't fake it. There's no filter. They run into you. Life just hits you, and all of a sudden it all comes out. All flies out of you. That's who you are, and that's what he's dealing with, is a crisis. But it wasn't just his appetite that changed, it was his self-contempt. And he says, no one gave him anything. Really? I mean, think about it. He went to a farmer, he said, can I get a job? The farmer said yes. Then it says he sent him out into the field. That's where the pigs are. farmer didn't say he monitoring him. He didn't say he's like checking the amount of pig slop that he had. No, he went out with tons of pig slop and he's giving it to the pigs. Do you think the farmer cared if he shared a plate with the pigs? You think he really withheld pig slop? No, this is really prime stuff. You can't waste this. It's just for the pigs. We don't want it to be wasted. No, the taskmaster was not external, it was internal. He had self-contempt, self-hatred. He was isolated from those who loved him. Don't you and I do the same thing when we're isolated? We think the worst. I wish we thought the best, but we don't. We think the worst of ourselves. We start limiting ourselves. We start believing we're not allowed to have those things we couldn't even possibly have, even pig slop. He was the taskmaster. And he didn't know him. He didn't know who he was. No one gave him anything. When we're in charge of us, we can deal with self-hatred and be driven by shame. But he no longer knew himself. But then, in verse 17, it says, when he came to his senses, he said, how many of my father's hired servants have food to spare? And here I am starving to death. I will set out and go back to my father and say to him, Father, I have sinned against heaven and against you. I am no longer worthy to be called your son. Make me like one of your hired servants. So he got up and went to his father. See, he was having a face-to-face conversation with him. He was having a self-reflection. He came to himself. He came to his senses. This is him in the mirror with himself. And he says, this is not who I am. What am I doing here? What am I, crazy? I don't like pig slop. I don't treat myself this way. See, he was better than this. He was better. He was better than just living for his own appetites. He was better than longing for pig slop. He was better than condemning himself. He was better than this. This is not who he was. Perhaps my father. At least I can get food if I go to my father. He might take me in. He might forgive me. There might be a chance that I could just be a hired servant, live in the barn and eat. At least eat. And he goes to that place because of crisis. Sometimes crisis can be the best gift to show us who we are. I remember I was sitting with this husband who was working on his marriage, and it had been a good 6 months, and we were checking in. I was like, how's it going? He'd made a huge mistake. And he says, you're just not going to believe it. I never thought marriage could be this way. I was like, well, what do you mean? He goes, oh, this problem that we had all of a sudden, like, we've been working through stuff in the scriptures. We've been meeting with people. We've been unwrapping what it is to be close to God and be close to each other. He's like, we've never had this kind of trust and intimacy in our relationship. And I know what I did was wrong, but now we have a better relationship than we ever thought or dreamt that we could. See, sometimes crisis is a gift. It shows who you are and who you do not want to become. It's a crossroads for us, and it helps us to make better decisions. He was better. And you and I were never supposed to be in charge of us. The vehicle of our life is driven by who God is, and he calls us into a higher level of living because he sees who we are. But you can't give yourself permission until you know you. And you won't fully know you until you understand who God is, your authority. And maybe God isn't your authority. Then who is your authority? To understand who your authority is. In the story, the Father is the authority. And it goes on in verse 20. It says, but while he was still a long way off, his father saw him and was filled with compassion for him. He ran to his son, threw his arms around him, and kissed him. The son said to him, "Father, I have sinned against heaven and against you. I'm no longer worthy to be called your son." But the father said to his servants, "Quick, bring the best robe and put it on him. Put a ring on his finger and sandals on his feet. Bring the fattened calf and kill it. Let's have a feast and celebrate, for this son of mine was dead and is alive again. He was lost and is found." So they began to celebrate. Living with permission is not just answering, "Do you know you?" but "Do you know God?" Do you know God? He thought he knew God. He expected at best that God would give him, that his father would give him a place among the hired servants. Imagine if that had happened. He goes, he knocks on the door, "Father, I've sinned against you in heaven. Can I at least be one of your servants?" And the father said, "I'll consider it." He does the pious, "Yeah, you betrayed me, you rebelled. I'm going to need some time." And he comes back and says, "Yes, you can be hired now. You can live in the barn. You'll eat. I'll provide for you. You can have everything, but you've lost your status as a son. That's gone. That's off the table. But you get to be here. I'll occasionally visit." Imagine if that had happened. Wouldn't that be perfectly right? I mean, isn't that what we could read in the Bible? Isn't that what we even think perhaps that God would be like? Doesn't trust have to be earned? I mean, forgiveness, sure, but trust has to be earned. He needs to earn it now. You betrayed me. What am I supposed to do? Just let you back in? But he does. He does the exact opposite. The moment he sees him far away, he undignifies himself and he starts racing. I don't know how old this guy was, but he's running to the son. Could you see the son's reaction as he's walking? Like, whoa, what? I've never seen Dad run before. And Dad is running to him. It had to be a long way. I mean, I'm thinking Little House on the Prairie, like farm. Like, he's running, stuff. And the son's walking like, I don't know, did I do something wrong? Like, I don't know what's going through his mind during that 3 minutes or so. But he's running to him, and he just picks him up in his arms, and he just embraces him, and he kisses him. And he's like, he doesn't even get the words out. "Father, I've sinned against you and against heaven. I'm not worthy to be called your son." "Stop talking, son. Stop talking." With all the forgiveness, he's quick. Bring him a robe, take the ring, put it on his finger, give sandals to his feet, kill the fatted calf. We're going to save that. No, kill it. We're going to celebrate. It's time to party. My son, I thought it was dead. He's alive. He was lost. He is found. He's quick to give us his forgiveness. Isn't that amazing? When it's just on our lips, when we consider, when we humble ourselves and just say, I was wrong. He's quick to treat us like a king, like a queen. Robes, rings, sandals, what is that language? He's a farmer. That doesn't make any sense. That's royal language. He elevates him, not because of who he is. He elevates him because of who God is. See, God elevates us not because of who we are. He elevates us because of who he is. He changes everything inside of the Son. Now the Son, I don't even understand what planet I'm on. I don't know how this could be so good. How'd I get here? The Son is overwhelmed. Have you ever had someone respond with this kind of love? Years and years ago, I was in high school, and my mom my mom was crying. We're a Latino family, so emotion flows. I grew with the family, just emotion would fly off everywhere. But this was like a time where like my mom was like sobbing, like really crying hard, and I'm like a high school boy, I'm not even in it. I'm just trying to survive, acne, just dealing with, but I'm there and my mom's like, she's sobbing on her bed, and I do the typical teenage boy thing. I just say, what's up with you? Like, I'm so embarrassed. But I'm like, what's up? And she's just like, she can't stop crying, and she tells me what happened. See, my grandmother, her mother-in-law, they always had a close relationship, and somehow there was a miscommunication, and she was accused of something she actually didn't do, and my grandmother just went off on her. She said she'd never spoken to me that way. It was a total betrayal. She will never trust me again. I don't know. I tried to explain. She just ripped into her, and it just crippled their relationship for years. My mother, who had worked so hard for that relationship, it was gone in a conversation. She felt so betrayed. And then years later, my grandfather passed away. She lost her husband, and she fell ill, and none of her family could take care of her. And so she needed someone to take care of her. It was my mom. My mom volunteered. And she took her in. She bathed her. She clothed her. She cared for her. She fed her, and she was like her child. She just loved my grandmother. And she told me, my mom said, your grandmother said, I never would have believed it was you at the end of my life that's taking care of me. And they mended their relationship before she passed. My mom, I asked her, why did you do that? And she goes, because God told me. See, God is not who we think he is. He's so much better. He's so much deeper with his love. He's so much more gracious. He's so much more forgiving. He desires only our good. He is the consummate permission giver. And we don't know what to do with that. It'd be easier if he was just like us. Like, at least it would be like, yes, I know I should be punished, but you do the love thing. I don't know what to do with that. God doesn't elevate us until we humble ourselves, until we understand that we're not worthy, that he puts his worth upon us and we can see who we are. And do you know that God trusts you more than you trust him? You thought about that? God trusts you more than you trust him. God believes in you more than you believe in him. And I don't mean believe in you like you exist. I mean believe in you like a coach or a teacher or a big brother or a father or a mother believes in you, sees things in you and says, I see this and I know, nobody else can, I do. He believes in you. And he trusts you dangerously. And me, dangerously. He gives and he gives and he gives, and he allows life to teach us hard things. And then when we call him, guess what? He sits with us in the consequence of it. Is there anyone like him? Do you know you? Do you know God? The sons didn't understand the Father. They didn't see him correctly quite yet. The younger son was starting to get a hold of it. And see, but the older son, then there's the older son who didn't know his own father, and he was with him all the time. It says, meanwhile, in verse 25, the older son was in the field. When he came near the house, he heard music and dancing. So he called one of the servants and asked him what was going on. Your brother has come, He replied, and your father has killed the fatted calf because he has him back safe and sound. The older brother became angry and refused to go in, so his father went out and pleaded with him. But he answered his father, look, all these years I've been slaving for you and never disobeyed your orders, yet you never gave me even a young goat so I could celebrate with my friends. So when this son of yours who has squandered your property with prostitutes comes home and you kill the fatted calf for him? My son, the father said, you're always with me. And everything I have is yours. You're always with me. And everything I have is yours. We don't just have to ask the question, do you know you? Do you know God? But do you want to know the you that God sees? Do you want to know the you that God sees? Because if you could see what he sees, you'd live differently. If you could see what he sees, you wouldn't make the same choices. The oldest son resented the father. He thought he had to slave away and live under obligation and do, because that's what he thought. Because he projected who he was upon God. See, God was in his image. The older son wasn't living in God's image. God has given us his image. He is in the mirror, and we look and say, that's what I am. That's who I am. I can see him. I can see him clearly. You're always with me, and everything I have is yours. Imagine if we believed that every day. If we said that, I am always with you, and everything you have is mine. I am always with you, and everything you have is mine. Can you say that with me? I am always with you, and everything you have is mine. I am always with you, and everything you have is mine. I am always with you, and everything you have is mine. Imagine if we lived in this, if we believed this at every struggle, every trial, every challenge, every transition moment, if we believed that I am always with you and everything you have is mine. You were never absent from me. There is no place where I can go where you are not present with me, and everything you have is mine. Can you get inside of that? Does it affect you? Can you understand that he is our permission giver, and he has a life you're going to try to catch up to your entire life because his goodness is everlasting. Everything is ours. My father, I can't talk about my dad. Can't talk about my dad because he's my hero. My dad's the bravest man I've ever known in my entire life. He grew up with 15 brothers and sisters. What are they called? Brothers and sisters? And when you sleep on a bed, your head goes here and your feet go here. My dad grew up sleeping like this, so his feet always dangled off the bed with 3 other brothers. Like super poor, like dirt poor. My mom grew up in the projects, and as a Mexican-American, he had a dream, see. He knew he was beating the odds. He knew it was going to be impossible. He wanted his kids one day to go to college. That was his dream. And my dad sacrificed. He pulled himself up. He stepped into places. And as a Mexican-American, growing up in America, there was racism he had to deal with, and people always pushed him down. But my dad rose up, and he moved to a city outside of his family, to Virginia, and he raised a family there in a new city, not knowing anybody. And my dad worked so hard. And when I was in pre-K and kindergarten, my dad would tell me about this beautiful vision he had for me. I was one day going to go to college. See, I was a college graduate in pre-K. I already knew that's what I was. I didn't know what that meant, but I knew it. Because my Father sacrificed everything for me. I can't tell you, except I am living inside of his vision today. He was my permission giver. How do you repay? How do you repay that kind of sacrifice? You can't. You just live in the permission that you were granted. And this is what God is trying to tell us in this amazing, made-up story. You don't know you, God knows you. You can't know God without him letting you know, and he knows. And he's revealing himself to you even now. Do you want to see you the way God sees you? Open up your heart to him, your mind, your plans, everything, and let him give you his permission to live. You pray with me. You may be here and you're ready to see you for the first time. You're ready to give your life to Jesus. You're ready to understand the puzzle of your life. And it starts with one simple prayer: Jesus, I give you my life. It's not all you and God have to talk about. It's the beginning. He made it really, really simple. He's quick to forgive. Jesus, I give you my life. That's all you have to say. Take a step and everything changes because he's inside of you and he changes that in you. Jesus, I give you my life. If you pray that prayer right now, I want you to raise your hand so I can pray for you. Anyone in the room says, yes, I want him. Raise them high so I can see. This is your moment. It does take courage to step into it. Beautiful, I see you. Anyone else say, yes, I want this. It's wondrous. I want this in my life. Beautiful. Lord, I pray, Father, for those who've taken a step today and said they want to trade their lives for yours. I thank you for your wonderful, wonderful plans that you have for them, that we fit inside your plans. And now we want to be the Father that you are. We want to be like you, like the sons could see as we see who you are. Pray, Father, for strength, for love, for peace, for destiny, to live the life with permission. In Jesus' name, amen. We join me in thanking God for all the decisions we've made today. Thank you, guys. God bless you.
Wow, 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 wow. Can we just thank Pastor David Arcos for that beautiful, beautiful message? Oh, my heart. Good morning, guys. I'm Mariah's dad, and this is my mini-me.
Hi, I'm Mariah. Thank you so much, Pastor David. It's such a beautiful thing. I've known David since I was a baby, and he's one of my heroes. And so to watch him live so faithfully what he preaches, just so you know, the people off of this platform are even better than what you see. They're even more faithful than what you know. And they've lived these things more than you could have imagined. And so they are to be trusted, and every word out of your mouth hit me and is changing me. And so grateful that you have dedicated your life to this. You're amazing. Love you. Come on. We have just a few things that we want to talk to you about, so if you would just stay with us for a couple of minutes. So many of you in here raised your hand, and we don't want to brush past this moment because this is the reason that we do this. This is the reason that my dad, 31 years ago, created this place, and he instilled so much in me that this moment matters more than anything. That people in this room have seen Jesus, have heard him call their names, and have decided to change their lives and step into a relationship with him. There's nothing sweeter than this moment. If you raised your hand, I hope that you know that even though they told us to close our eyes, I did not. And I saw you. You can't hide. The people want to know you, because as much as this is a personal and private, intimate moment, it's not to stay that way. Our relationship to Jesus as Christians, as Jesus followers, is to take this moment and now live out in the open. Everything that's going on that just happened face to face with Jesus, go and tell someone face to face. Go and tell someone so that you can take their lives as an example. People around this community are on the same journey. They might be serving, and yesterday they accepted Jesus. We don't have any sort of criteria for that. There's a beautiful thing being in community, and that's why we're here. That's why we do this every Sunday. Every Sunday we're here on this corner so that you know that you're not alone and that people want to journey this life with you. And so if you were one of those people, come to the back. Adolfo, who's playing keys right here, and Ciela over there will be at the back holding up Bibles. This is just the starting point for you. But if you want to know more about who Jesus is, this is where you find it. And we want to give you your first Bible, and we want to hug you and be there with you in the journey.
That's awesome. So, there's always, every time we come together, two ways to respond in, I think, an authentic and life-giving way. One is to open up our lives to Jesus. And if you have not yet stepped into that, we hope that that happens soon for you. There's nothing more beautiful than what even David's describing, having a relationship with God who already wants to give you everything. It's just a beautiful thing. But in your opening, David, you talked about you need to know yourself. And it's kind of hard, actually, to know yourself, I think. Because sometimes we think, oh, we are what we think, or what we believe, or what we say. But you know as well as I do that you change what you think all the time. You change what you say all the time. Sometimes you change your view of yourself. The best way to know who you are is by what you bring to the world, what you give away. I don't even know if you know yourself until you begin to give yourself away. So when you're filled with stuff that's messing you up, you mess up the world around you. When you're filled with bitterness or envy or greed or anger, that's what you bring to the world. But when you're filled with love and compassion and faith and hope and generosity, that's what you bring to the world. Which is one of the reasons I'm convinced a part of the way Jesus established the church is that there's no secret funding. He changes our hearts. He makes us generous people. He brings in us a conviction to live a sacrificial life. And then we give together to serve the world. And so every week we take a moment to invite you to join us in giving together. And here's the secret money formula. If you give money, you don't get it back. Okay? There's no secret God bank account. And I know a lot of people out there try to convince us to give by telling us, if you give to God, God will give you more. God's already generous to you. You don't have to give to God to make God generous. All right? He's not going to be impressed by your giving. And you give because you have changed as a human being. And generosity is one of your highest values when you connect to Jesus. So there's this magical Pac-Man image here, this QR code that you can scan, and you can make a decision to become a recurring contributor, giver, investor to what's happening at Mosaic. We're going to pass these buckets. They usually start empty. They usually end empty. And the buckets are really just a symbolic way for you to hold something that will remain empty until you make a choice to become a giver. And I got to tell you, we love giving. Jake and Mariah are some of the most sacrificial and generous people in our church. In fact, she's very competitive. She is determined, they are determined to be the biggest givers in our community. And I see this in them all the time. So we're not inviting you to something that we're not a part of. We believe that generosity changes us. and it changes the world. So I want to invite you, hit the QR code, give online, give a check if you know what that is. Love you guys. We'll see you.